Hi, everybody. Welcome to Glazers Live. I'm Kate Haley. I work here with the store, and we do a ton of events, uh, generally year round. Most of these are often in person, as many of you know. But during the pandemic, we've been shifting to an online series that we've called Glazers Live. Last week, we had PhotoFest Live, which was also a lot of fun. But we're going to get back into having kind of mostly weekly sessions with different companies and different brands. And today's kind of special because this will be the first time that on the day a camera has been announced, that we get to have a first look at that camera virtually, uh, with a representative from that company. So today we're going to bring you a first look at the new Panasonic Lumix G100 with Mark Toal, who works with Panasonic. If you've visited our store at events in the past, you've met Mark before. He's a fantastic guy to hang out with, and he's a great photographer. So, Mark, tell us a little bit about you and your role at Panasonic, and then tell us a little bit about this new camera that we're hearing about.
Okay. Well, I wish I was there in person today to show it to you like I usually would be. So we'll do our best online. So again, my name is Mark Toll. I'm the manager of the technical reps who go around the country teaching about cameras and go online doing this. And I also represent stores in the Northwest. So Glazers is a store that I used to visit often and hopefully will again soon. But in the meantime, we're going to do this online. So again, Panasonic wants to introduce this new camera. If you were on at the beginning and you saw the picture that they put up, one of our publicity pictures of a woman holding the camera out. Let me see if I can do this like at arm's length. And we're going to bring it up again. Oh, just a blink there. So that kind of sums up what this camera is about. This camera is aimed at that picture right there. So that sums up the main market we're aiming for with this camera, which is the video vlogger, which is the vlogger who wants to make videos for Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, TikTok, IGTV, things like that. So it's designed for that, but it's also designed for another customer too. It's a G series camera. So this is the latest iteration of our G series cameras, which means it uses all of the lenses, all of the interchangeable lenses that our cameras use. But the beauty of this camera, from my personal experience, I've been using it now for about 2 to 3 weeks, is the sheer size of it. It's very, very small. It's the smallest interchangeable camera we've made. Let me compare it to, if you're familiar with our cameras like our LX100, which is basically a point and shoot type camera. It's not much bigger than that except for the viewfinder. So anyways, let's talk about the two markets for just a second. The one is the video vlogger, and what we've done to make this a vlogging camera is to strip down a lot of the controls. So it's not meant to have every adjustment on the outside of the camera. It's literally meant to be able to pick up. It's got an articulating screen, which is beautiful. So if you're vlogging, you aim the screen out towards yourself, and then when you push the record button for video, it immediately goes into face detection, and it immediately turns on the unique microphone, which is uses Nokia Oko technology. And what that means is that when you point this camera to you, not only does it go into face detection and detect your eyes so it stays in focus, the microphone can turn into literally a shotgun microphone, which points itself towards you. And if you go to the right, the microphone shifts to the right. And if you go to the left, it shifts there. If you go around back, you can record narration from the back of the camera. And another thing for vloggers that's very important, this is our first camera that shoots vertical video. Because if you look on Instagram, Facebook, IGTV, or TikTok, it's all vertical. And that's because most people are watching these on phones, on cell phones. So if you hold this camera vertically like this when you're shooting your video, you'll see it vertically. It'll automatically switch on the display, and when you bring it into your phone or your computer, it will automatically be set to vertical. So you can transfer it using Wi-Fi. And again, Wi-Fi we've made simpler. Everything has been made simpler on this camera. Wi-Fi is now a one button. So let's say you shoot a video, you want to transfer it over to your phone to post on IGTV. You literally go into play mode, bring the video up, connect the Wi-Fi, and it immediately transfers the photo, the video, or multiple pictures to your phone. You no longer have to go in and select them and do things like that. The camera there's two kits available. There is the body only, which looks like this, body and lens with the 12 to 32 lens. There's also a kit that'll have a small tripod in it. Mine didn't arrive in time, but it's basically a small tripod that plugs into the USB port and screws into the bottom and allows you to basically turn video on while you're holding this out at arm's length. It's got image stabilization. So again, it's aimed for that market, but the thing that surprised me is I didn't think this camera was going to be for me when I got the description from Panasonic, because I'm not a vlogger. I make videos, training videos and things, but I set it up on a tripod and stand in front of it, and I'm not going to hold a camera at arm's length. But I immediately fell in love with this as a still camera for its size. And I just carry this camera everywhere with me now, because again, I love the LX100 with its fixed lens, but a lot of times I want to put a wider lens on, or I want more telephoto. And I love our GX85, but I want an articulating screen. This one has a microphone jack. Anyways, that's kind of the overview. These two markets are the video vlogger, the person who wants to be famous on YouTube, or the photographer like myself who just wants a small light camera to carry everywhere. Like yourself, Kate. I'm mainly a street photographer, and I just want a camera that's not in the way, and I can just pull it up real quick and push that shutter button.
Yeah, I remember, we talked about that a little bit in advance of this session. And, I think more and more, and I think we talked about this too, is that people that might be taking a lot of photos on their phones might be interested in stepping into a camera like this, because it does give you some more advanced features and options, but it's still kind of got a minimalist package to it. So it might be easier for you to get going with. So if you've been thinking about like your first camera, and you don't want to go full on DSLR that's big and heavy, you could start with something like this and really get you a lot of different features. I could also see it as a nice little travel camera potentially for the video aspect and the still aspect. You talked a little bit about lenses. So for this, you said your G series lenses are already going to work on this camera.
Yeah, they all fit. Yeah.
So
all the Olympus lenses fit. Any 4/3 lens will fit. Micro 4/3.
And I know typically your lenses are a little bit smaller, but kind of what would be your top 3 lenses that you'd recommend pairing up with this camera?
Well, again, I go from my personal experience here. So what I've kind of settled down in the camera, I carry a Think Tank sling bag, right?
Yeah.
And so what I've settled on in there is obviously the 12 to 32 I really love. I love the 7 to 14 millimeter wide angle. It fits this camera really well, and it's nice and light. And I'll show you a video I made with it in just a second here.
Okay.
And then the third lens I carry with it, because of the size, is our little 45 to 150 millimeter, just very small telephoto lens. They're all really sharp lenses. They're not fast lenses. They're not indoor lenses, but I'm using this mostly outdoors.
Okay.
But that's kind of what I end up with. So I've got 3 lenses in this, and I use one of the smaller of the Think Tank sling bags. I've got 3 lenses in there, and I've cover everything I shoot.
So as I tend to go with primes myself, those are all different zooms. Is there a prime that you kind of love that maybe falls in the middle of that range, something that's around a 35 or a 50 in that range?
Yeah. The one I absolutely love, and I'm not as big a prime fan as you are, because I'm lazy. I tell people I'd just soon not get out of the car to shoot the picture. So, but the lens that looks the best on it and kind of fits the best is the 15 millimeter 1.7 Leica lens that Panasonic makes.
Okay.
That
would totally be
fit. That's an equivalent of a 30 millimeter once you put the factor in for the 4/3 sensor.
Yeah.
And it's just a beautiful fit, and it's great for low light.
Yeah, I'd probably be all about that lens, it sounds like, because that falls into the range that I love. And I do street photography, but I also will do cityscapes or urban landscapes or just travel in general. And I tend to be moving around with my feet, zooming with my feet. So,
when I get back to traveling, like when I come to Seattle, and I'm walking out to dinner in the evening, I always put that 15 on because I want that 1.7.
Yeah. Yeah.
I tell people these kit lenses, people use the word kit lens and they almost use it in a derogatory way, the
Well,
tone in their voice. And I tell people that these lenses are sharp, like the 12 to 32 that comes with it. They're just not fast. They're just
right.
not made for low light.
Right.
Um,
Well, I
yeah,
think there's been a history of some kit lenses not being the best
yeah,
lenses out
yeah,
there, and they're typically free or pretty low priced. Um,
yeah.
so I I can see where people might come from on that, and
Yeah, I
yeah,
feel that way too. I've been
yeah,
shooting for a long time, and
yeah.
I can be as I would say snobbish as anybody, and just kind of I want to put that Leica lens on there.
Right now, well, who doesn't, right? Um,
Exactly. Yeah.
so let's talk about some of the key specs. You've already talked about kind of who this camera is really geared for, but are there features on this camera that might not be available on any other Lumix camera right now? Like, is there anything just like new that like if you're looking for
Yes.
it to do this thing, you can't actually get that in any other Lumix camera?
Yeah, and that's the vlogging part of it.
Okay.
That's the ability to shoot the vertical video, and it's got a really neat feature too, which I hope it'll come to all of our new cameras, but I hope we'll go to some of the old ones. Is when you're shooting video, it puts a bright red box around the screen. Because I don't know about you, but there's so many times when I've been shooting video and I've pushed the button, but I can't see the little blinking red dot and the counting up the seconds, and I'm actually not shooting. Or I've bumped it and I've shot 5 minutes of video of me carrying the camera. So now when you hit the video button, you get this bright red box around the frame. The other thing too is the vertical video. And a lot of it though, there's not like a new breakthrough technology. It uses the 20 megapixel sensor, the current sensor that we're using. It's got image stabilization. It does 1080p video up to 60 frames a second. It does 4K photo, time lapse. All those features you're used to in all of our other cameras. But I would say the breakthrough things are the simplicity, the size, and the vertical video, and just how easy it is to shoot that kind of walking down the street video with this camera. Yeah.
So really, I mean, it sounds just like a super versatile little guy, and it's really inexpensive. It's $700 for the camera
Yeah, I'm glad you
with
asked.
the
So it's
12 to 32.
750 with the lens is a
Yeah,
kit like this. There's also a little tripod. Like I said, unfortunately, mine didn't arrive in time. That'll be in a kit for $799.
yeah.
And then until through the month of July until August 1st, we're doing a special where you'll get $50 off of either one of those, plus an extra battery and a battery charger.
Wow.
Because
Okay.
this camera, like most cameras nowadays, they charge through the USB port,
Right.
and companies don't give you a separate battery block anymore to plug it into the wall.
It's true.
So until through the month of July, we're going to throw in a battery and a charger that you can have a second battery charging. Because to be honest with you, you know this from, I know you use the Fuji cameras, but any of these small mirrorless cameras, part of the way they make them small is to make the batteries smaller.
Right.
So when you come from a camera like a full frame Nikon or a Canon, and you're used to getting 1,000 shots or 800 shots per charge,
Right.
and all of a sudden you go down to 400, it can be pretty shocking. So,
Yeah.
um,
I mean, and there's
we're giving
ways
you
you can conserve the energy. Like I don't chimp every shot. I keep my monitors
yes,
off unless I need them. There's lots of ways that you can get more life out of your battery. But yeah, I mean, it's always great to have a second battery in your bag. Pretty
yeah.
much if I'm leaving the house with a camera, I have at least one extra battery because you just don't know. Uh,
Me too. Yeah.
yeah,
And
it's
a
just,
lot of times, I don't know about you, but I forgot to charge it, and I
oh
get
yeah,
out there and I turn the camera on, and it's 2 bars are already gone.
yep. That happens a lot
And,
too.
and so
But I
I just
mean,
got,
especially right now because we're not actively taking photos the way that we normally would. I haven't done a portrait session since February, so
yeah.
definitely I'll go to a camera and turn it on and be like, oh yeah, they need to charge that battery.
Well,
um,
I mean, part of the reason I've enjoyed this camera so much, it's kind of become my new carry everywhere camera, and I'm
yeah,
mostly a still photographer. You'll see in these pictures, but again, since the shutdown, I've kind of had to find new things to photograph. There's not many
yep,
people on the street, as you know, to do street photography.
right.
They're all wearing masks.
Well, but that is a
So
different story to tell. There are different stories to tell than we would normally have to tell. I know
exactly,
for myself, I've been out there. I'm not going out a lot because there's still a big risk. But, when I'm going out, I'm taking precautions and trying to document things as they are right now because, to me, those moments are history and time. And it's important to capture those moments, even if they're really different than what we're used to seeing.
I agree. But as I try to make a new way in the world as far as photography or during this time, sometimes I wouldn't carry my camera because, there's nothing to shoot today. But this one's so light and small, I just throw it over my shoulder and head out with it.
Well, you said you had some sample photos and video. Can you share that with us right now? And then we'll do a little more Q&A.
Tell me if you can see these in a second here.
Okay.
I'm gonna share. Let me see if tell me if you can see Lightroom.
Yeah, we got you.
Okay, so again, I wander the streets. I'm from Portland. I don't know if we talked about that, and I love this painted on the side of a building, a mural. This is supposed to be Paul Bunyan and his big blue ox. And part of the reason I'm showing this and these other pictures is these are straight out of the camera.
Hey, Mark.
Done in this camera is they've actually tweaked it to give you a little more contrast and a little more saturation in the color.
Hey, Mark, we're only seeing the film strip there.
Aimed it mainly at videos, but it also works really well for stills.
Hey, Mark.
Like this one. I was in a restaurant.
Hey, Mark.
And I'm in the program mode. Oops. I'm in the program mode. If I can get back to that.
We can't see the images. We can only see the thumb strip.
This is just with the 12 to 32 millimeter kit lens.
Hey, Mark.
You can see every indentation in the chalk. So now let me show you a video I made, because one question that's going to come up a lot is how is the autofocus in this camera when you're shooting video? And I'm not a vlogger, so I'm going to leave that to the reviewers, but I've been testing it. And I went out and shot a video here. I'm holding the camera at arm's length.
Hey,
you can
Mark.
see why I don't do it all the time.
Hey, Mark.
And I'm holding it at arm's length and I'm pushing the red button. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn the camera around to show the restaurant that I'm in.
Mark.
To show how quickly it'll autofocus. Sorry about the shaking.
Hey, Mark.
How quickly it focused.
Is he muted?
And then back to myself here, and you saw it immediately picked up focus, and it's looking for my eye and face. So I haven't had any trouble with this. I'm shooting these, if people are wondering, I'm shooting these at 1080p, 60 frames per second.
Hey, Mark.
Here's another great example. So to go to kind of an extreme.
Mark.
Sorry, my computer is running a little slower this morning. So
Mark, for some reason, you can't hear us at all.
Granddaughters. Oh my God. Because we don't always eat ice cream out of the back of the car, even though I am from Florida.
Not in there.
We're sitting eating ice cream in the back of the car. I put the 7 to 14 millimeter lens on, and I wanted to test the focus and exposure capability of the camera, kind of put it to an extreme test. So what I'm doing is I'm walking, I'm holding the camera handheld. This shows how good the stabilization is. Okay. Now what I'm doing, you look how sharp her hair is.
Hey, Mark.
Whoops.
Mark, we could not see the photos. We could only see the film strips.
We can't. Can you hear us, Mark?
There we go.
Mark. Is he? Hey, Mark.
Did you mute us?
You can see how sharp this is. Now I'm going to go back down to Eliza. Move around here. I'm testing everything. I'm trying literally to break the focus on this camera. And I'm in auto exposure, which people wouldn't normally be in this situation, but you saw how quickly it switched. Yeah. But again, look at the sharpness. So I haven't had any problems with the focusing, the video capability of this camera. So let me show a few more stills.
Can you unmute us if he's muted us?
Stop this.
No.
And again, just to show you, these are all right out of the camera. You can see the sharpness of this lens. This is the 12. These are all with the 12 to 32.
Mark, why can't you hear us?
Again, let me zoom in on this. And again, what I love is, like, I took Eliza to the beach one afternoon last week, and I can just put this camera in just the smallest, and I love think tank bags, the smallest think tank bag I've got, and just carry it along when we go to the beach and not even think about it. Here I am in an air museum. This is the Evergreen Aviation Museum in McMinnville. And look at the sharpness of this. Again, I can't stress this because, like I said, people sneer at that.
Mark, can you not hear us?
Oh, no, I can't. Sorry. Have you lost the feed?
Yes. We never really had it, and we've been trying to get your attention.
Sorry about that. Oh,
so,
no. Oh no! For how long?
So
For like
if
an
we
hour?
could just
Okay.
so what is happening right now is we can only see the film strip and no photos, just the film strip, literally.
Oh, you can't.
Yes.
Okay, hold on a
So
second
that's
here.
what we've been
Okay,
trying to let you know for the past 5 minutes.
Can you
Sorry
hear
about
us?
I apologize. Here, I had the volume down so you couldn't hear the videos.
Oh, no,
Okay,
yeah.
let me try sharing
We've been trying
the
to get your
desktop
attention.
instead. Okay.
Let's do
Yeah.
the whole.
There we go.
Yes.
And if you hit,
Okay. No. Do you
If
want
you
to go
hit-
back 5 minutes to the beginning of this?
well,
Yes.
let's just go with the photos, but if you hit F on your Lightroom, then people can see the photo a little bit larger. Hit F.
Okay.
Yeah. That's
yeah.
a full screen. There you go.
Cool.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay.
That
So again,
works.
you can see the sharpness of this picture. Okay, let me play this. Unfortunately, I need to go back a second here to play this. I need to have this way so I can see the play button. So if you didn't see this, so this is a video I shot where I wanted to test the vlogging capability with focus, because one question that's going to come up, and it comes up with all of these vlogging cameras, is how does it do with autofocus, with face detection autofocus? So what I did is I'm holding the camera here where I start this. I'm just holding it at arm's length, trying to make sure it stays focused. It's following my eye. Turn around, show the restaurant that I'm at here. Here I am showing the restaurant to show how quickly it focused. Now I'm going to turn it back to myself to show how quickly it refocuses on my face and holds the focus. Okay, now let me show you a video that I tried. I literally tried this to try to break it and see if I could get the autofocus system to fail. So here I am. I'm in full auto here. I'm using the Panasonic 7 to 14 millimeter lens. These are my granddaughters. We're eating ice cream out of the back of the car, and I'm going to start this. Go ahead. It's all autofocus. Look at the exposure. The exposure is completely automatic. I'm using the built-in microphone. It takes a second to focus on her, but once it does, it's fine. Okay, and then I'm going to go back down to Hadley. And again, this is kind of an extreme test of the autofocus and the auto exposure. And you'll see when it goes back down to Eliza, it takes a second to re-expose, but it immediately picks up focus. You can see how sharp her hair is there. Okay, so let me go back to a few more stills. So I will go to full screen here. Okay, so again, I'm going to stores that are closed. You can see how sharp this is. This is the 12 to 32 lens. Again, it just can't be any sharper. Here I am. Eliza and I went to the beach last week. I put this in just the smallest, think tank bag I could carry. The Aviation Museum, you probably heard me describe these. This one especially, let me zoom in on this. If you can, this is with the 12 to 32 lens, handheld because the camera has image stabilization. Again, 12 to 32 lens. I just can't stress enough the sharpness of the camera. And the nice thing was I'm at this museum I was there for about 3 hours, and just carrying this camera around was such a pleasure. And then I had an interesting experience. Let me get to, you can just see how sharp these planes are. I made a, okay, so this one here, I used a feature in the camera called iDynamic. And this allows me to increase the dynamic range. Normally, the bottom of this would have been very dark, just really in shadow. And by using iDynamic, it brought that out. So again, this camera has everything. Look at the dynamic range here. It's just beautiful in the sharpness, the engine of this plane. Again, harsh lighting conditions, and it's not burning out any highlights. Now, I went to the drag races, and this was kind of interesting. So let me zoom back on this. This is a video I shot at the drag races. And again, this is with the little 45 to 150 millimeter lens. So again, at the drag races, I'm shooting mostly still pictures, but I'm mixing video in with it just by using either the black button or and again, I'm not a big vlogger, but I'm going to use this a lot as a video camera. Again, here's my granddaughter, sharp as can be. If I zoom in on the eyes, I dare you to match that to any lens. This is final one here is one I took out on my walk the other day of the sun coming through a leaf from the back. So again, as we discussed, let me go back, let me stop sharing here. this has just become my go-to carry everywhere camera to do both stills and video with.
So, Mark, let me ask you a little bit. We have some conversation coming in. Can you tell us a little bit more about the in-camera stabilization? Because I did see a couple of comments from people that there wasn't IBIS in the camera, but you're saying that there is stabilization in the camera. So could you talk
Good. I'm glad somebody
bit?
asked that. Yeah, let me explain that because it is different on this camera than it is on our other cameras. So it uses, if you're taking still pictures, it uses the lens stabilization, okay, only, okay. And if you're shooting video, it uses a hybrid stabilization that uses electronic stabilization in the body combined with the lens. So you get 5-axis stabilization when you're shooting 1080p video, you get 4-axis when you're shooting 4K, and when you're shooting stills, you get the lens stabilization.
Okay.
So now again, what that means is because it's electronic stabilization when you're shooting video, it does crop somewhat. So you can set 3 different settings. You can turn it off if you're putting it on a tripod. You can set it for, I believe, standard, low standard, or high. As you step up, it's going to crop a little bit more because what it's doing is using less of the sensor to make that to stabilize that image.
Okay, so that does kind of help clarify. Do most of the G series lenses have stabilization built in, or as a switch to turn that off and on?
Most of them do, but the wide angles don't.
Okay.
Because the theory is with a wide angle lens, you don't need it as much.
Right.
But most of our lenses do have stabilization built in.
Okay, cool. You touched on this a little bit. There's this new audio feature that is a cell phone audio feature from Nokia that you guys are the first one to integrate this audio feature in your camera. Could you talk a little bit more about that?
Yeah, it's really neat. This is really neat about this camera because, normally, like all the rest of our cameras and every other camera out there that I know of, has a microphone built into like the pentaprism on the top. And that picks up sound from every direction, which is very distracting if somebody's talking into the camera and let's say a car goes by behind the camera or off to the side. So what people do is they buy shotgun mics to make up for that. And that directs the sound towards the front of the camera where the person's speaking. So what the Nokia technology does is it does that for you. So literally when I point this camera towards myself and I flip the monitor out, it immediately goes into a shotgun type configuration where it's going to be all forward. And if I move off to the right, it's going to follow me and it's going to minimize those sounds around me.
Oh, wow.
Also, if I want to do narration, again, I can go behind the camera and I can either control this through the menu or I can just let it be auto and let it figure out where I am.
Okay.
So it uses face detection to basically follow you around and keep that focused on you. Now, I've done some tests with this, to be honest with you, with different microphones. And I find it works very well. If it's windy, it's a little trickier. But it works as well as a microphone I have that cost me, I think, $100. Now, when you get into $200 or $300 shotgun microphones or lavaliers, you're going to get a better quality of sound.
Right.
But on a small camera like this, you don't always want to put a gigantic microphone on this. So
well, yeah,
it's just a way to get, for the vlogger, great audio.
Right. Well, and you talked about how you wouldn't necessarily carry that camera around like that. But in the past couple of years when I have traveled, I've seen these guys with like their larger mirrorless cameras and a little mini shotgun mic, and there's a dead cat on it or a dead mouse or whatever, dead kitten, all these dead animals. It's so sad. And then, they've got it on a Joby tripod that's like this big, and it just kind of looks a little crazy, and I get why they're doing it. And we've had sessions with some of the guys who do this as well, but it just struck me, I've traveled for a long time, and I've gone from 10 years ago, I was in Paris for a trip, and everyone had a DSLR, like everybody. And I was like, how does everybody have the money for a DSLR? But everyone had a DSLR. And I was back again just a few years ago, and the landscape had shifted. There was a couple of like traditional cameras, and I mean mirrorless or DSLRs, but everybody was shooting on their phones. So like this is kind of an interesting bridge camera between those two things to like when you need a little bit more, because the phones are great, they do a lot, but there are limitations. So when you're reaching those limitations, you want better audio. maybe you want better video, you know, you can do a lot. So
Yeah, well, your example is perfect because that's a lot of who we're aiming for in this is that person who's vlogging on a phone right now, who's talking into their phone. And you know, one thing, maybe I'm doing something wrong, but I compared the phone to this camera. I did a test. But when I'm vlogging with my phone, looking into it, I'm using the, what do they call it? The front-facing camera,
yeah,
the one you use for FaceTime,
yeah,
which is a lower quality camera.
it
Now,
is.
I know people do this by turning the camera around and using the like the wide angle lens that I have on my iPhone 11 Pro, but then I can't see myself.
But there's
And
ways
it's kind
around
of
that.
odd. I like this being able to see this.
Yeah.
So yeah, what you're saying is so we want to not eliminate that external microphone, but for most situations. So if you are walking around town and you don't want to carry that selfie pole and the microphone and the Joby Gorilla, you can just carry this camera and literally, like I said, hold it out at arm's length.
Right.
In fact, let me share my screen again for just a second here. I want to show you the microphone that I don't have, or I have the, I mean, not the microphone, but the tripod looks like
Okay.
this.
Yeah,
Can you see that okay?
Yeah.
Okay, so this is what the little tripod that comes in the kit for $7.99, or it'll be available separately also. But
Yeah.
there's a little red button to shoot video. There's a black button that's a little hard to see there to shoot stills. And there's actually a sleep button around the side here. You plug this into the USB port. You know, I've used this also. I love doing time lapse in our cameras. And I've used this just to set it on a park bench and shoot the clouds going over and make a time lapse out of it.
Well, and it's interesting also, I've used gimbals and things like that and small tripods as a stabilization device. And it's actually
Yeah.
surprising how that little grip, and in this case, it turns into a mini tripod. It's amazing how much extra like stabilization that can provide. You wouldn't think that
Isn't
it
it?
would help that much, but it can.
Yeah, and I'm not a person who likes to carry a lot of accessories. So again, I like not only the size of this camera, but the fact that it's just got all this stuff built in. You know?
Yeah. Well, it sounds like it's a pretty robust. So I'll do a couple more questions.
Sure.
We we talked about vlogging. Do you think if someone was really getting started in making films, would they go with this camera, or would a step up from this probably be a better option?
Yeah, and the main reason for that is not the, well, the physical layout a little bit. You also want things like a headphone jack if you want to
Right.
make films. But if you're going to make films, this does 8-bit color, and you want something that does 10-bit color. You want something more like our G9 or GH5.
Okay.
If you want to be a filmmaker.
And they're not that much more.
This
Those are
isn't strictly for social media,
Yeah.
but it's really aimed at a social media camera. It's aimed
Okay.
at a person who probably isn't going to post-process this video a lot,
Mhm.
maybe on their phone, or maybe just tweak it slightly.
Yeah.
Where in filmmaking, you really want a video that you can bring into Final Cut or something like that. This would do it, but for the extra money, I would go with the G9 or the GH5.
So along with like those who are into vlogging, this could also be, if you're a small business who's creating content for your social media, Mark was just
Yes.
talking about that. Like this could be an interesting option for you as well, because you can get a lot done in camera with potentially minimal editing that you could share on your own Instagram stories or IGTV or TikTok or whatever social media platforms you're exploring right now. And the price point just seems like it's really good. So right now
Well,
with
and
that
by
instant
making
rebate,
it simpler to use, the control
Yeah.
simpler, maybe that office, that veterinarian dentist office who wants to make some videos for their social media, they're not going to be intimidated by the camera.
Right.
They're not gonna do white balance, even though it has a white balance button on the back. They're not going to do custom white balance.
right,
Yeah.
right. But they might,
Yeah.
but it's also it's interesting when we think about these kinds of cameras, because for a lot of people, it's a desire to step up from what they can do with their phone. And then that becomes a stepping stone. Okay, well, now I need a little bit more,
Exactly.
So
And-
it's an
Yeah, and
interesting.
one other thing the camera will do, which is nice, is it will work as a webcam. If you
Ah.
have now, you need a capture card. Like I'm using an ATM Mini, or they have the ATM Cam Link. I bought the Mini from you guys. You guys sell all this stuff, but it has an HDMI out port, and it has
Okay.
what's called clean HDMI out, which means that you don't see the menus; you just
Yeah.
see the screen.
Yeah.
So here again, for an inexpensive camera, you can do all these videos with it, and then you could put it on a little tripod next to your desk and improve your streaming quality tremendously,
Right.
then unplug it and go out and shoot.
Yeah. Well, there's so many options. I think also with that price point, it's a great like entry level camera for a lot of folks out there. Um,
Yeah.
so we don't have, hang on, let's see. Oh, okay. That question is completely unrelated, so I'll talk to them offline. We had just like one really long question come in. I'm like, we'll talk to you in a second because it's completely unrelated to what we're doing.
That's great.
This one, I hope you guys have enjoyed this because we're just having fun here and we're talking about cameras and geeking out, and that's
we're
okay.
live.
And we're live, so we've had some problems. It's all good. So, Mark, you told me earlier that this camera is going to be available in stores towards the end of July. But if you're
very
interested,
end of July.
Yeah, so if you're interested in this camera, you can pre-order either the kit with the lens or the kit with the additional little handheld monopod tripod situation. And there's that instant rebate that they talked about too, and some other goodies. So a lot of times pre-ordering, there's no financial commitment there. It's basically putting your name on the list. So when we get them, you get that first call, or second or 12th or whatever the case may be. But yeah, I mean, like to get those bonus items that are going to like benefit you using this, it's a great opportunity to pre-order it. So I dropped the link on the Facebook chat and the YouTube chat, and we'll put it in the description of this video once we're done with the session today. So you can check out more about the camera. You can read more of the specs and all that good stuff. And then you can give the store a call and pre-order yours today. Mark, I just want to thank you for your time today. I know we plan to go a little bit longer, but we have minimal questions, and I feel like we really hit the highlights. But before we wrap, is there anything else that you'd want to share about this camera before we wrap up?
No, but I have a couple classes coming up with Glazer.
Oh yeah, well, I'll get to that. But you can talk about them. You talk about them.
I'll do your part too.
That's fine. Go for it. And now
do you have the dates in front of you? I'm sorry, I don't have the exact dates.
No, it's okay. You're fired, Mark. No, I'm just kidding. I'm kidding. So we have 2 sessions coming up with Mark in July. One is on July 22nd, and that is an introduction to video editing. So Mark is going to spend an hour with us and just show us some essential tips on getting started with how to edit video. That's July 22nd. And then after that, we're doing a Lumix, get to know your Lumix camera on Saturday, July 25th. And that one is also going to be with Mark. And these sessions right now are free. We are working on more programming, and as the city continues to open, we're going to plan probably some little mini workshops where we can get out in the field again with social distancing and masks and all that good stuff. Because I think a lot of us are ready to take all this stuff and information we've been sharing over the past few months and go put some stuff into practice and create some photos again. So so go to our website, glazerscamera.com/workshops to check out all of the upcoming sessions. But if you're a Panasonic customer, if you just bought a Panasonic camera, if you're interested in video editing, those 2 sessions will be really great. One is during the week, one is on a weekend. So there's some flexibility. And I believe some of these will also be available on our YouTube channel to watch later. Just like this session will be with all the hiccups that we had, and that's okay.
Sorry about that audio hiccup.
It's okay. Just don't ever mute us because we need to get your attention.
I turned the volume down so you didn't hear. Anyway, never mind.
Anyhow,
I learned something.
Yeah, we'll give you a hard time about that later.
Exactly. Yes.
Yeah. So lots going on, lots coming up. So thanks for everyone who tuned in today. Mark and Panasonic, thank you so much for your time. This new camera looks like it's going to be a lot of fun and a great option for those who are interested in vlogging. I'd say travel as well, or just walking around doing a little street photography, exploring your city. Just the size, it seems like it's a great walk around camera too. So
yeah, hopefully I'll see you on one of your photo excursions.
Yeah, let's do that one of these days.
With my mask, of course.
With your mask, yeah. Oh yeah, I have mine too. This is mine today.
Yeah.
So anyhow, thank you everybody who joined us. Mark, thanks again. Have a great rest of your day. And we'll see you guys online soon for more sessions like this. So thank you all.